The morning I found my future written down, I thought it was a cruel joke. That's how it began, quietly, almost tenderly. There was nothing dramatic about the moment itself. The sun had not risen yet, and the street outside my window lay still, the world holding its breath between night and dawn. I sat at my kitchen table, tracing the edge of a small brown diary someone had left by my front gate. My name was written on the cover in blue ink, neat, feminine handwriting I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it must have been a misplaced package or maybe something one of the neighborhood kids dropped. But when I turned the first page, my breath caught in my throat. The entry was dated for tomorrow, and it described everything I was supposed to do: wake up late because the alarm battery would die, burn the first batch of toast, then receive a visit from my neighbor, Mrs. Sen, who'd bring over warm parathas and ask if I'd seen her missing cat. It was written as though someone had been watching me closely, writing about an ordinary day of mine before it even happened. I remember closing the diary, shaking my head, thinking, someone's playing around. Maybe it was one of those social experiments, or one of the teenage girls across the street trying to create some viral mystery. I placed it on the counter, made my tea, and told myself to forget about it. But the next morning everything happened just like the diary said. The alarm didn't ring. I did burn my toast. And not 5 minutes after, Mrs. Sen was at my door, holding a plate of parathas wrapped in paper towels, asking if I'd seen her cat, Momo. That's when the air felt heavier, like something invisible had stepped into the room with me. I laughed it off with her, but inside, my hands were trembling. That evening, I kept staring at the diary sitting on my dining table, its brown cover quiet and patient like a secret waiting to be told. By the third day, curiosity beat fear. I opened it again. The next page held another entry. Dated for tomorrow. Again. It described me answering a phone call. My mother, it said, would ask me to come home. She'd sound strange, nervous, softer than usual. Then it said I would find a photograph hidden in her drawer. A photograph that would make me question everything I knew about my family. I read the page twice, heart pounding. My mother rarely called. We lived in the same city but kept an awkward distance, years of half-healed words standing between us. So when my phone rang the next afternoon and her name flashed on the screen, I froze. Her voice was exactly as the diary had described. Tara, she said softly, can you come over this evening? There's something I need to talk to you about. She hesitated before adding, it's important. I went. When I arrived, her house looked the same as always, the old mango tree shading the veranda, the faint smell of rose incense curling through the open windows. But my mother looked older that day. Her eyes were tired in a way I hadn't noticed before, her hands trembling slightly as she poured me tea. We sat in silence for a while. Then she looked at me like she was deciding whether to speak a truth or bury it forever. Do you remember that wooden chest in my bedroom? She asked gently. I do, I said. There's something inside it you should see. Her words struck me like déjà vu. The diary had written this moment before I stepped into it. I stood and walked to her bedroom, the same room where I'd grown up sneaking chocolates from her cupboard, where my father's faint cologne still lingered on the faded curtains. I opened the chest. Beneath old saris and photo albums, I found a single envelope taped to the bottom panel, with my name written on it. Inside was a photograph. A baby wrapped in a pink blanket, cradled by a woman who wasn't my mother, and tucked behind it a hospital birth certificate with my name. But the mother's name wasn't hers. I don't remember dropping the envelope, but I remember the sound it made when it hit the floor. Soft and final, like something dying. The diary had been right again. That night, I sat in my car outside her house, the diary on my lap. I flipped to the next blank page. My tears had already smudged the edges. I was afraid of what it would reveal next, afraid and desperate at the same time. My whole life, I had trusted reason, facts, paperwork, but here I was, shaking, questioning not just fate, but my own blood. Who was the woman in that photo, and who had left this diary for me to find? The next morning, I woke with a tightness in my chest that didn't ease all day. The diary sat untouched on my kitchen counter, begging for attention, and yet, I was terrified of what the next page might say. I wanted to believe it was coincidence, that the neighbor's cat story and my mother's call were random, isolated events. But how many chances did fate get before I had to accept that this diary was somehow guiding me? By mid-afternoon, curiosity won over fear. I opened it again. Tomorrow's entry was shorter but sharp. Tomorrow, You will overhear a conversation that threatens to tear your family apart. The words burned across the page like a warning. The kitchen clock ticked loudly as I sat there, hands trembling. Who was talking? And what secret could be worse than discovering I was adopted? That evening, I was restless. I told myself to sleep early, but my mind kept replaying that photograph, those furtive glances from my mother, the silent guilt hanging between us. I knew the truth wasn't hers alone, it must have been shared, protected, maybe even buried for years. My husband, Raj, noticed my distraction. Tara, you're quiet. Something happened? His voice was gentle but concerned. Raj always called me Tara in those moments when words felt too much. I wanted to tell him everything about the diary, my mother's secret, the photograph in the chest. But I couldn't. Not yet, I'm fine, I lied. Just tired. That night, in the quiet dark, I heard whispers through the thin walls of our apartment. Voices I recognized. My mother's. Someone else, drawn by a mixture of dread and determination, I tiptoed to the living room window and peered out. Across the courtyard, lit only by a single flickering street lamp, I saw my aunt, Sushma, standing too close to my mother, their faces strained, the tension in their gestures unmistakable. It's too late to keep this hidden, Sushma said quietly, hands clenched. People are starting to talk. My mother's voice trembled. Not here, not now. I'm telling you, Tara deserves to know. They didn't see me, and I didn't dare breathe. I didn't need the diary to confirm this was the conversation I was meant to overhear. It was raw and real, ripping open wounds I hadn't known were so deep. The next day, I barely spoke. At work, the smell of brewed coffee and the hum of keyboards felt distant. The diary's new entry awaited me like a challenge. Tomorrow, you will confront your mother about the hidden past. Be prepared for lies and half-truths. I closed the diary with a whisper. How do you confront someone with a secret they've kept for decades? How do you demand the truth when every word could break what little trust remains? That evening, we sat at the dining table, the space between us thick as smoke. I poured myself a glass of water, the cold droplets sliding down the side of the glass like my own nerves. Ma, I started, my voice low, I heard you and Sushma talking last night. About me. Her eyes flickered, then clouded with pain. I didn't want you to find out this way. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Why did you hide it? Who is she? I held up the photograph, the baby with the unknown mother wrapped in pink. My mother's hands trembled as she reached for the table. Your real mother is someone I loved deeply. Someone I lost because of mistakes, and because of fear. I waited, the weight of years pressing down on us both. She told me about a brief affair, a secret kept to protect a fragile family. She said my father didn't know, that she had chosen to raise me as her own after my birth mother couldn't. I didn't want to hate her. I knew the choices had been impossible. But I also felt betrayed, like the foundation of my life had quietly shifted beneath me. The diary's pages had predicted this confrontation, but not how it would make me question everything about who I was, what I believed. Yet, in the raw hurt, I also saw my mother's fear. She wasn't a villain. She was human. Flawed and hurting like me. Later that night, I wrote in a notebook of my own. Not a diary that predicted futures, but one where I tried to make sense of the past. The next page in the mysterious diary was blank. For the first time, uncertainty felt like an opportunity. As the days went by, the diary became both a burden and a lifeline, a strange compass shifting between fate and free will. Each morning, I'd hesitate before opening it, my heart pounding in anticipation and dread. The entries revealed moments I couldn't ignore, but they also forced me to confront truths I had long buried. One chilly evening, as the monsoon rain drummed softly against the window panes, I sat curled in my favorite armchair with the diary resting on my lap. The scent of wet earth filled the room, mixed with the faint aroma of cardamom chai brewing in the kitchen. I read the next entry, brief and foreboding. Tomorrow, a letter will arrive that will uncover an affair and threaten to unravel your family's carefully woven story. I closed the diary slowly, fingers lingering on the worn leather cover. An affair. The word hit me like a thunderclap. Was it the same secret my mother hinted at? Or something worse? The next morning, as predicted, a letter arrived. The courier handed it to me with a silent, knowing look. The envelope was unmarked, heavy, and sealed with a red wax stamp. A stark contrast to the digital age. I opened it in private, the paper crackling under my fingers. Inside were photographs and letters, proof of an affair between my mother and a man I had never heard her mention. The letters were tender, full of longing and regret. The man wasn't my father. My chest tightened with a strange mix of pity and anger. How many lies had been spun around me? How many times had my mother crouched in silence while stories were told to me as truth? The day blurred into a haze of whispers and shadows. Raj noticed my distress. He held my hand, his touch a small island in the storm. "You need to confront her," he said gently. I didn't want to. Not yet. But I knew I had to. Secrets wound tight like vines around the heart, enough pressure, and they break. That night, I went to my mother's house again. She was waiting in the dim light of the living room, candles flickering, casting her face in soft, wavering shadows. I showed her the letter, the photographs, her face drained of color. "Yes," she whispered. It was a chapter one thought was closed. She told me about the man, an old love from her youth, a passionate but impossible affair. She had ended it long before I was born, she said, choosing to protect me and the family she had built, but the letters, hidden and preserved by someone else, had found their way back. Our conversation was heavy with silence and unshed tears. Yet, despite the betrayal, I sensed her pain, the weight of years swallowing her pride. As I left, the rain had stopped. The air was thick, but beneath the clouds, a faint glimmer of moonlight broke through. The diary's pages remained a puzzle. Some days it whispered warnings, others, hints of hope. On days when the entries showed danger, I found myself holding tighter to Raj's steady presence, my anchor in the storm. And then came the day when the diary wrote of a revelation that would shake the very foundation of my identity. The entry was simple but chilling. "Tomorrow, you will discover your aunt's true identity." I stared at the words. My Aunt Sushma? The woman I had always known as the gentle, protective presence at family dinners and festivals. What secret could she be hiding? The diary didn't say more. It left everything hanging in the silence that followed, like a breath held just before a storm. That night, my mind raced through memories. Aunt Sushma had always been kind to me, a second mother, a confidant. She knew the family's secrets, but to be part of one herself. It was unimaginable. The next day, I found myself standing outside her house, hesitating before knocking. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dancing shadows on her porch. The garden smelled of jasmine and earth, a familiar comfort amidst the chaos in my heart. When she opened the door, her smile faltered for a moment, sensing something in my eyes. "Come in, Tara. You look like you're carrying the weight of the world." Inside, the house was warm and fragrant with spice and sandalwood. We sat in her living room, the walls adorned with family portraits and faded photographs. I took a deep breath. "There's something I need to know, Sushma. Something about you." She studied me quietly, then nodded. "I suppose the diary has told you," she said softly. My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" She reached for a small wooden box on the table, opening it to reveal documents, birth certificates, old letters, photographs. "I was never your aunt by blood, Tara," she confessed. "I am your biological mother." The room seemed to tilt beneath me. The past few weeks spiraled in my mind, my mother's secrets, the affair, the letters, the adoption. Sushma continued, voice heavy with years of hidden sorrow. "After your birth, I made a choice to give you to your mother so you could grow up in a stable home. It was a sacrifice, but one I hoped would give you a better life." I touched the photograph, a younger Sushma holding a swaddled baby. Her eyes fierce with love and loss. "I watched you grow from a distance," she said, "always wishing I could hold you. But I was bound by silence." Tears escaped my eyes. I had loved this woman all my life as my aunt, but now the truth shifted that love, deepening it in unexpected ways. From the window, rain began to fall softly, the sound like a quiet hymn to the secrets finally spoken aloud. The diary's next pages promised both danger and hope, tangled like vines around my heart. But at that moment, beneath the storm's gentle song, I felt something break free inside me too. The days that followed were a tempest of emotions, conversations, and fractured silences. The diary, like a patient guardian of truths too painful for daylight, continued to reveal what I could no longer hide from myself. One entry caught my breath. "Tomorrow, your family's past will collide with the present. The truth cannot remain buried." I knew this meant Raj, and I could no longer tiptoe around the shadows that had fallen across my life. I invited him to meet with both my mother and Sushma. It was an awkward, tense afternoon, filled with restrained glances and carefully chosen words. Raj was kind, steady, a calm amid the swirling storm. Yet even his patience was tested. My mother, who had raised me, and my biological mother, who had given me life but lost me, sat across from each other, two women bound by a secret, their eyes glistening with unspoken apologies. "I never wanted to hurt you," my mother said quietly. "I only wanted what was best for Tara." Sushma nodded. "And I sacrificed everything for her well-being. Sometimes love demands impossible choices." The conversation was raw, honest, and aching with the weight of years. I saw the pain etched deeply beneath their calm facades. Forgiveness and regret mingled in the air. Later that night, I sat alone, the diary open on my lap. The pages seemed to pulse with energy, as if urging me forward. "Tomorrow," it read, "you will face a danger that tests your strength." The ambiguity was unsettling. What danger? What was waiting for me? The following day, I learned the answer in the most unexpected way. Raj called me at work, voice tight with urgency. "Tara, you need to come home. Now." When I reached our apartment, I found the police waiting. They spoke quietly, their words punctuated by grim looks. Someone had been digging into my family's past, not with kindness, but with intent to expose and destroy. Letters and photographs from the affair and adoption had been leaked to the press. Rumors spread like wildfire, and our privacy was torn apart in the court of public opinion. My heart hammered in my chest as I sat in our once safe home, feeling the walls close in. The diary's words now felt like a prophecy, a warning I could no longer ignore. Days turned into restless nights. Friends called with condolences and questions. Neighbors whispered behind half-closed doors. Somewhere between anger and despair, I realized that fate might write certain lines in our story, but it was up to me how I would live those words. I decided I would not let shame define me or my family. At the next family gathering, I stood before relatives and friends who had come to hear the news. The weight of expectation pressed on me. Taking a deep breath, I told our story of love and betrayal, of sacrifice and truth. "I don't know all the answers," I said softly. "But I do know that family is not just about blood. It's about the love we choose to give." Some faces softened. Others remained guarded. But in their eyes, I saw the first flickers of understanding. The diary, now filled with pages of revelation and resilience, had brought me to this moment where fear met courage and secrets met light. That night, Raj and I sat by the window, wrapped in silence, watching the city lights twinkle like stars reborn. I finally closed the diary, feeling the weight lift. At least for now, the future was unwritten. The days after the family gathering were a delicate dance between rebuilding and reckoning. The rumors had tapered, but their echoes lingered in hushed conversations and sideways glances. Yet, something inside me had shifted. The diary had guided me through the storm, but I realized that true strength wasn't in knowing the future, it was in choosing how to walk through it. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I sat in my room with the diary open one last time. The pages, once filled with ominous warnings and cryptic predictions, now held notes I had scribbled in the margins, reflections, questions, hopes. The next entry read, "Tomorrow, you will find peace not by changing your past but by embracing your truth." Those words stirred something warm inside me, like the first gentle rays of dawn after a long night. The phone rang, a surprise call from Sushma. Her voice was soft. "Tara, I've been thinking, maybe it's time to share more with the rest of the family. To heal, not hide." Days later, we arranged a small family gathering. Not the tense, whispered event I had feared before, but a celebration of truth and acceptance. Sushma told her story openly, my mother spoke with grace, and I shared the journey we had all taken. Laughter mingled with tears, and for a moment, the air was lighter, freed from the suffocating weight of secrets. Raj held my hand, his presence steady. Later, as I lay in bed, the diary beside me, I realized it had not been a curse but a gift, a mirror reflecting the choices we face when fate deals us difficult hands. The diary had revealed the threads of our past, showing me that life is not just about what happens to us, but how we respond. In the following weeks, I took small steps towards healing. I reconnected with my mother and Sushma, learning to accept the complex layers of love and pain. I also began writing my own story, one not dictated by prediction but by courage and hope. The diary became a symbol not of destiny foreknown, but of a path chosen. Morning light filtered softly through the curtains as I sat at the kitchen table, the diary resting beside my cup of tea. The house was quiet, the kind of silence where every small sound is magnified, the distant hum of traffic, the faint rustle of leaves outside, the steady tick of the old clock on the wall. It was peace, a fragile peace I hadn't known I'd been searching for. The journey hadn't been easy. The diary had led me through shadows of doubt and betrayal, to confrontations that tore at the heart's seams. But within those painful moments was something more enduring, a mended thread of love, resilience, and understanding. As I looked out into the garden, the jasmine flowers swayed gently in the breeze, their scent wrapping around me like a soft embrace. I remembered something Auntie May often said in her stories: life is messy, but sometimes, in that mess, we find the truest pieces of ourselves. My mother's secret, Sushma's sacrifice, the letters revealing hidden pasts, they were not just stains on the fabric of my life, but part of the intricate pattern that made me who I am. That morning, I penned a letter not to anyone in particular, but to the part of myself that had been lost in silence and shadow. Dear me, I have learned that truth isn't always easy, and sometimes love asks us to be brave in ways we never expected. The diary predicted my days, but it did not decide who I would become. I choose healing. I choose forgiveness. I choose hope. Later, I called my mother and Sushma. We spoke for hours, voices weaving through memories and laughter, piecing together a new understanding, a future built upon honesty and compassion. There would be hard days still, moments when pain surfaced uninvited. But I felt stronger now, grounded in the knowledge that family is more than history, it is the bond we nurture, the truths we find in each other's eyes. The diary lay closed on my table. A silent witness to a journey that had been both predicted and chosen. Would the diary predict tomorrow? I didn't know. And for the first time, I didn't want it to, because tomorrow, the real tomorrow, was mine to write. Life's secrets can weigh heavily on our hearts. But what if the power to heal and move forward lies not in the past we uncover, but in the choices we make today? Would you have the courage to face a truth that changes everything? To forgive the people who shaped your life in ways both painful and beautiful? Tell me your story in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, please subscribe and support the channel to hear more tales of courage and hope.